Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This one is going to be a little bit of a weird one. This video isn't going to be for everyone, especially if you're triggered by talk about sex or pornography or anything like that, because I want to do the horoscope of Bonnie Blue, the pornographic actress that's been in the news so much lately. I just find her fascinating, and I find her fascinating because I've always had a great connection with shame. So if I was told off at school, I'd blush and I'd really feel ashamed of myself. And for instance, the idea of me, for instance, going on something like Onlyfans and showing people my bits, that would just fill me with dread and shame. And if someone on my channel, for instance, I do a daily tarot reading on my channel, right? And the other day, someone said, "Hey, Greg, maybe you should get a manicure. You should consider that because you can see my fingers in the video." And I had a bit of a meltdown over it. And for me, the idea of someone commenting on my physical appearance is a nightmare. And also the idea of doing something that is seen to be shameful is something that I would really struggle with. Maybe it's because I'm gay, and I discovered that very young, and I was brought up in this fundamentalist Christian boarding school, and there was this whole idea around guilt and shame with that. Maybe that's why I had so much internalized shame about it. But shame to me has been a big theme in my life. And there's a book that's really helpful and wonderful I read years ago. It's called The Velvet Rage. And it's about gay people's experience with shame, and that we kind of have a special connection to it because of our role in society, right? So this woman then, she's 25 years old. I looked a little bit online and tried to discover as much info as I could so I can draw up her natal chart. To draw up a birth chart, I need the date of birth, I need the place of birth, and ideally I need the time of birth as well. But in this case, I was only able to find the date of birth. So Bonnie Blue was born on the 14th of May 1999 in Stapleford in the UK, and that's near Nottingham. Let me double check. Yep, near Nottingham. And on that day, sunrise, if I don't have the time, then I use sunrise. Sunrise was at 4:50 in the morning, and that was based on British summertime. So I've got her chart here in front of me. When you don't have the time of birth, you can't really rely on the ascendant, and you can't rely so much on the house placement because the chart changes every 4 minutes. And if she was born at 9 in the morning or at 3 in the afternoon, the house placements would be completely different, and the ascendant changes pretty much every hour. So I'll just take that into consideration. But there are a lot of things here that kind of make sense. So first of all, let's say, just as an outline here, if she was born around sunrise, the rising would be Taurus, which is an earth sign that has to do with the physical body and money and everything of the physical world. It's a fixed earth sign, so it wants to take control of the physical, and it's ruled by Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and creativity. So it would make sense, actually, if her rising sign was Taurus, because it would mean that she's governed by these principles, right, of sensuality and sexuality. It could also be through creativity, and you could argue that the way she presents her content is creative, that she doesn't do it the way everyone else does, and she comes up with these outrageous ideas that get her a lot of publicity and a lot of attention. And there's also a big desire to kind of create security and wealth, and not to have to worry about money. And apparently she's making millions a month on OnlyFans by doing this. But her sun, so if the rising sign in a chart is your default setting, which again, in this case, we can't rely on so much, then what you're striving towards is the sun. And the sun is your solar plexus chakra. It's your life force. It's the identity that you're aspiring towards. And it's at 22 degrees in Taurus. And 22 degrees is the master number of the builder. And Taurus, again, is this earth sign that is about having the building blocks to really create something long term, like to create a legacy, something you'll be remembered for. And what's interesting is that we have the sun, again, in this case, in the first house of self. And that would mean that I am going to use myself, the body, my physical appearance, as the product to build this legacy. So it makes sense in terms of appearing in pornographic films then. It's my entire body on display, and I'm doing these way over the top kind of events and shoots so that I will make a name for myself and I will acquire and accumulate as much wealth as humanly possible. And certainly you can't really argue that this is something that's going to be forgotten very quickly. She set a record recently of, I think it was sleeping with more than 1,000 men in 12 hours. And I don't think the Guinness Book of World Records wanted that accomplishment in their book. But it's certainly something that other people are going to remember. So the next thing we've got is we've got the moon. The moon represents the heart. It represents your home, your feelings. And that's at 3 degrees in Taurus. And again, it's in this earth sign. And the sun and the moon were near enough to each other that it's almost a new moon. There may have been a tiny little sliver of a crescent of a moon, but a new moon is when the moon is pitch black, and it's that time during the moon's 28-day cycle when it takes a moment to say, hang on a minute, I'm not on display here, which is ironic, right? I'm taking a moment for myself, I'm gathering myself, I'm getting my bearings, and I'm pulling a ton of energy in order to start my next 28-day cycle. So in this case, it's pulling in Taurus energy, the ability to build something of substance, and 3 is communication and new beginnings. So the heart, the moon here, has a strong desire to articulate something, to produce something. So whether it's film or art or creativity or pornography or whatever it may be. The other thing about the sign of Taurus is that it can be said to be very stubborn, and it's on the axis with Scorpio. And that whole axis is about taking control of things. So Taurus wants to control the physical world, and it wants to say, I want to control my own body. I want to control how much money I accumulate so that I can buy myself a house and have financial freedom, so that I don't need to worry about every penny that I spend at the supermarket. I want to control money to the degree where I have financial freedom. That's very important to Taurus. And Scorpio is about being emotionally very aware and diving beyond the surface of things and getting to the root cause of any kind of situation, and therefore having emotional control by being immune to being bamboozled and being immune to being lied to without noticing. It's very intuitive. It's able to pinpoint exactly what the situation is, what the hidden agenda is, what's really going on, why everyone is there, what the motivations are, and it's emotionally very, very intelligent. So the fact that she's got both luminaries, the sun and the moon in Taurus, allow her to really take control of her environment, her appearance, the things that are going on in her world, and there'll also be a strong desire to control those things. Then again, we can't rely on this too much because of sunrise, but if she were born around this time, we would have a midheaven in Capricorn. And the midheaven in a natal chart is a big indicator of what you're going to be good at work-wise. And Capricorn is the sign of the worker. It's at 16 degrees here. So working creatively, having your own business is something that would really suit her. So this may be something that she really enjoys doing and that really works out for her. And we also have 2 sections of the chart where we have stelliums, right? A stellium, S-T-E-L-L-I-U-M, that's 3 or more things together, blending their energy together, creating a lot of a particular type of vibe in someone's chart, someone's life. So we have the moon in Taurus, then we have Saturn at 8 degrees in Taurus. Saturn is the planet of structure and security, and it rules Capricorn, the sign of the worker. 8 is power, and in Taurus, it is very, very certain of itself, and it's very able to build. It's able to build cathedrals and media empires. And it has incredible self-belief, and it says, I can do the heavy lifting and I can build something really unique and significant and long-lasting. Then we have Mercury at 9 degrees in Taurus, and that is, Mercury is the communication planet, and when she was born, it was direct. So a lot of times when people have Mercury in retrograde when they're born, it takes them a little longer to find their voice. So they may have, in their teenage years, they may have things like social anxiety or struggle with certain learning, parts of learning, right? But her Mercury was direct at 9 degrees. 9 is spirituality and completion. It's the vibe of the hermit. And in Taurus, it's her way of seeing things is in a very literal way, and expressing herself is also going to be in a very physical, tangible, earthy kind of way. So whether it's painting or whether it's pornography or whether it's flower arranging or pottery, the way to express herself is always going to show up in some sort of tangible way. So it may be that later in life she gets into gardening and she creates a beautiful garden in her backyard. Palace is wisdom, and 11 degrees is the master number of service, and that is in Taurus. And I don't want to make any jokes here because I have absolutely no judgment. And I was just going to say, the master number of service, she serviced a lot of people in that 1,000 plus thing in 12 hours. But I'm looking at this as someone who isn't as affected by shame and is able to do certain things because they're not affected by shame. So they can do things that the rest of us wouldn't even dream of because of the backlash. For instance, in her case, once she's pulled these stunts, she's going to have security. And she's mentioned in interviews that she gets all this hate online and that people are sending her death threats and all this stuff. So there's going to be a requirement for her to spend quite a lot of this money that she accumulates on securing herself. And Palace, wisdom, 11 degrees in Taurus, says that I can make a lot of money by offering something of value, which is then going to be returned to me via finances and abundance. And in her case, the thing that she's chosen in this instance to make money, and you can't argue that she's making money with this, she really is, that she's chosen to use her own body and that's the product that she's selling, and it's selling very well because a lot of people want to buy it, right? Then if we go to the other side of the chart, we have, and before I go to the other side of the chart, we also have Jupiter, the lucky planet. That's at 21 degrees in Aries, and Jupiter is about growth, it's about prosperity, and it's about abundance. 21 is 3, that's communication and new beginnings, and in Aries, it's doing things solo, it's doing things outside of the box, it's doing things independently. It's not needing a support network. It's being a pioneer, being a leader, being someone who does something differently. And in her case, if she does something completely out of the norm that other people wouldn't consider, she's likely to succeed, she's likely to prosper. And again, in this case, that is accurate as far as her life is concerned right now. Hopping over to the other side of the chart, we have another stellium. We have Pluto and Juno and Chiron. They're all in Sagittarius. And then we also have Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. So Pluto is life and death. It's transformation and change. And it's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And at 9 degrees in Sagittarius, it's a trailblazer. And it says, I want to tear down what is. So I don't know if this is part of something that she's doing consciously, but there's a part of her based on this that wants to change societal norms by burning them to the ground and by saying, I can do whatever I like, and whether it's dangerous for me or not is completely irrelevant. I want to be a trailblazer and pave the way for other people to. And I don't even think it needs to be that generous in terms of I'm doing this so other people can have more sexual freedom in their lives. But I really want to do something that rattles society and gets people to think about what the norms are. And I want to do something that makes people reevaluate that. Juno at 6 degrees in Sagittarius, going on these adventures and doing these things that are kind of visionary in nature. And you may think now I'm being too generous, saying, okay, she's a visionary for having sex with this many men. But what I'm saying is, one, the willingness to take on something which is so socially so frowned upon, I think is courageous. In interviews, it sounds like she's aware that there is backlash, and that the backlash can be dangerous, and that she's messing with what people hold as sacred. And she's also kind of using things like rage bait, as in she's encouraging men to cheat on their wives and to say, you know, if you're bored at home, then that's not your fault. It means that your wife is lazy and you should come and see me for a group orgy, which is rage bait. It's deliberately provoking people. And that's the kind of thing that could give her some sort of pleasure in itself, to be such a contrarian or a provocateur. Chiron is at 1 degrees in Sagittarius, and that says that there's probably something in her that is unhealed, that wants to burn things to the ground in order to heal. You know, sometimes if we have inner destruction, it makes sense to create external destruction so that our insides match our outsides. So the provocation, the rage inducement, it may be that she's very angry about something herself, that she felt provoked and powerless over a situation in the past, and that this is an attempt to regain her power. Black Moon Lilith is nearby as well. That's at 27 degrees in Scorpio. On a emotional level, I think she's very good at understanding what is going to really enrage people, what's going to grab their attention, what's going to help her make a name for herself, to arise from the masses of people who are on Onlyfans. There must be thousands and thousands and thousands of creators on there. And how to push certain buttons which would get you that attention that you need. So Black Moon Lilith at 27 degrees in Scorpio says she's a very smart cookie when it comes to understanding other people's feelings and how to manipulate certain feelings in order to get what she wants, which is eyes on her. We have Venus at 6 degrees in Cancer, which is interesting because Venus is the planet of love and sexuality and beauty. And in Cancer, it's very nurturing. And at 6 degrees, it's about creating an opportunity to nurture others. So I don't know how much nurturing she can be doing in those kind of circumstances, but I would say that later on in life, she'll have a desire to either start her own family, to have her own children that she can nurture, or that she will want to have people around her who she's very close to and who she cares for, and vice versa. And that's interesting because that's going to create a complication for her later on in life, because a lot of people, after pulling these stunts, and this is where how emotionally aware is she or not, and where a lot of luck comes into play, it could cause her problems if she tries to settle down later on in life And if she wants to have a very conventional marriage, I've got a lot of loud geese outside my window at the moment. Maybe they're giving their opinion on Bonnie Blue. But that's a luck factor, you know, because I was watching this thing the other day. You know, the founder of Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, she is this convicted fraudster who said, I can revolutionize the blood testing industry by testing for every disease by taking one drop of blood. And the whole thing turned out to be a scam. And her name was dragged through the mud, and she was a fraud and is imprisoned and things. And she still found a husband. I think she's currently married. And she's, by the looks of things, or, you know, what you read in the media, you never know what goes on behind the scenes. But it looks like a very happy marriage. So despite her kind of ruining her public reputation, she was still able to settle down and find that. In this case, Bonnie Blue, my prediction would be that later on in life, she will want to have these intimate, nurturing relationships. The North Node is at 17 degrees in Leo, so the big mission here is to make a big splash and to become a public figure. And to make the public the home, because we have Vesta sitting next to it at 15 degrees in Leo, and you may think, okay, Greg is starting to talk psychobabble now. But by being a public figure and by being world-renowned for something, you create a home in the public's imagination. And with Vesta next to it, this is a way of, again, creating a home out there, because a home internally doesn't exist. So I need to have everybody know my name, because either in myself I don't feel at home, or in my family of birth I didn't feel at home. So I need to become famous, and I need to become a household name so that I am in people's households and that I belong in some way. So this is a tricky and complicated situation, you see, because if you're trying to make a name for yourself by provoking people, then they're not going to be, yes, they will be aware of who you are, but they're not going to be so willing to invite you into their home. A lot of people, you know, people are going to have different judgments around this. What else have we got? We've got Mars, the planet of ambition and drive and masculinity. That's at 27 degrees in Libra. And Mars rules Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. So I do what I want. And Libra is the sign that opposes Aries. So Mars is really disempowered here, and it's forced to put all of its time and energy and focus and ambition into Libra, which is building bridges with other people. And one way of doing that could be by being focused on your appearance and trying to be as attractive as possible. So there may be a sense of real pressure that I need to be attractive, I need to feel attractive in order to feel like I matter. And then also all of this energy into listening to what other people want for her, in terms of, let's say there's a lot of financial pressure, right? That Mars in Libra opposes all the stellium in Taurus on the other side of the chart. So as an example, I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, but it could be. If there was a lot of financial pressure in the family, the home family, her family of birth, that Mars in Libra could have said, hey, Bonnie Blue, it's down to you to provide for the family and to do something drastic to make a ton of money so that these financial pressures go away, and you know how to make a lot of money, and you kind of owe it to your family to take care of them. So you could argue that this is all been a very altruistic kind of act in order to provide for people who weren't able to provide for themselves. Neptune's at 4 degrees in Aquarius. That's in that, and again, I can't really look at the houses so much because I don't have the exact time. But Neptune in Aquarius is very much about, I want to reach beyond people's consciousness into their subconscious and I want to teach them something, and I want to open their eyes to something and share a really powerful message that's going to change society. Uranus is at 16 degrees in Aquarius, and Uranus is the miraculous and the chaotic, and at 16 degrees in the sign of the water bearer, the humanitarian, the teacher. It's through her creativity that she really wants to blast away some of the social norms that we've got in place. And I find this so fascinating, because to say I'm going to take on society as a whole by doing something totally controversial that puts a bullseye on my back and makes me a figure that is reviled by a certain part of society, celebrated by another part of society, but certainly someone who's very controversial, I find that very impressive from this place of shame, where I would never want to do anything that would bring on deliberately the disapproval of other people, and that would make me feel shame. I would try instead to do things that other people would applaud, and they would validate my actions and say, well done. I would feel much more comfortable with that. And that's why I have quite a fascination with this, because the stunts that she's pulling is kind of creating discourse. It's getting people talking. It's changing the way people are going to behave in 5 years, 10 years from now. Because in 5, 10 years from now, this is going to be old news. Oh, you've slept with 1,000 people? That's nothing. Bonnie Blue did that 10 years ago. You need to sleep with 10,000 now in 6 hours if you want to make a name for yourself. So you see, it's upping the ante and it's changing the standard. And the thing here is that we've got Hades at 17 degrees in Gemini, and the thing that she really doesn't want, according to her chart, to happen is for her voice not to be heard and for her not to matter. So I think this is a way of creating something massive that says you can't ignore me. You have to pay attention to me. It's going to be so outrageous that you can't dismiss me. You can't just say I'm nothing. And what also fascinates me is that, this could be medically induced. It could be that she's on a constant prescription of some sort of benzodiazepine, which removes all anxiety and all fear, and that she's just like this medicated zombie while she's doing this, and that could be an influence. But if she's doing this without any kind of medical assistance on her own, then I think just having such a controversial identity is something that is remarkable, to say the least. Then we have some major aspects at the center. We've got a yod, which is known as the finger of God, and that connects Hades with the North Node, and it peaks with Capricorn. So it's through the work that she's going to make this massive impact, and that her voice is going to be heard. So I wouldn't be surprised if she writes a ton of books after this, if she gets, she's already doing interviews, but if she goes on to like the interview circuit much more, and it becomes more of a social commentator in future, or even starts to work in kind of gender politics, or or even in academia, studying kind of gender and the role of or certain roles that people are expected to play and how to go against the grain. And then we've got another yod which connects Pallas in Taurus with Venus in Cancer, and that peaks with Juno and Pluto in Sagittarius. So it's through her sexuality and betraying the standards that are expected of her culturally, socially, that she finds it easiest to burn the bridges, to burn everything to the ground, to make the impact that she wants, and to get people to not only pay attention to her, but I think part of this, based on this chart, is that this is a person who wants to open people's eyes, that there are expectations of us in society, whether I'm a 15-year-old girl or a 40-year-old man or a trans person, or I've worked in the military, or I am a nurse, or I have a background in academia, or whatever it may be. I think she wants to burn all of that to the ground and to say a lot of the expectations for how we behave in society are ludicrous, and I don't want to stick to them anymore. So you could argue that she is creating a space that allows for people to not be so defined by their given roles in life, and that they can say, no, I'm not going to be that. And for me, that's fascinating, especially with this shame thing that I'm not ashamed of myself right now. I think I was in therapy for like 8 years. I worked through a lot of the internal homophobia and all of that stuff. But there were certain things that would make me blush, right? In my 20s, in my 30s, like as a grown man. Like I'd be really embarrassed and shocked to the core. And that this person has the nerve to say society and the expectations and the roles that it assigns to most people, if not everyone, a lot of those are not only outdated, they are stupid, they are restrictive, they dehumanize people. And I think this is, and it's one way of looking at it, that this is a way of getting back to the person and saying that you, without being a mother or a sister or a daughter or a friend or a teacher or a mentor or a student or whatever, you're a human being, and whatever expectations we have for you are none of our business, and you can actually be whoever you want to be. And I think that that's a positive message. And it's a very interesting way of achieving that message. And I'm certainly for not making children feel ashamed of themselves, or young people feel wrong and being told off through the education system when they act out or when they don't behave in ways that are expected of them. Because I do agree that a lot of the expectations of us are completely nonsensical. Like what I've noticed in my life, people have treated me very differently just when I show up at the age of 20 to now past the age of 40. Nothing's changed except my age, and people treat me completely differently. I'm given a ton of respect, where who's to say I've earned any of that respect just because I have a few gray hairs? And a lot of these things are worth examining, and I think that people could use this as a way of not judging as much, and secondly, giving themselves freedom and more choice and more options in their own lives to behave whatever way they want to behave. And if I am the son of a minister, and I want to, I don't know, do something that would go against dad's wishes, then that is good and okay. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're not only here to please your parents and to please society and to please those around you. At some point, you've also got to say, to hell with society and what everyone else thinks. This is my life. I've got to live it. And that's the balance. And that's what I found so interesting. Strongest modes are fixed. Strongest element is earth. So one thing we can definitely agree on is that this is a woman who's going to end up as being very, very, very wealthy. So in that regard, congrats, Bonnie Blue. Okay, so I hope that gave you something to think about. I hope that's something maybe that got you thinking in a different way. For me, certainly, I found this fascinating. I offer personal reading. So the way I read this chart, I can read your natal chart as well. Like I said at the beginning, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. And then once I do have your time of birth, I can reliably look at the ascendant and the house placements and what those mean. And I can analyze your personality the way I did this. To look at what's coming up in future, I look at your progress chart and your transits. That's what's moving over your chart and how. So I can predict, when it's likely for you to move, or when it's best to sell a house or to hang on to the house, or when it's great for relationships and things like that. And also there's another thing called astrocartography, which is looking at the same thing but from the other way around. So rather than being on Earth looking up at how the planets were placed, I'm in the sky. I look at how the planets were moving over the different planets were moving over the parts of Earth, and how each of the areas influence you. So if you're thinking of moving, but you don't know which locations work best for you, astrocartography is a good thing to look at. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope this has given you food for thought, and I will speak to you soon on the channel. I do videos on the new moons and full moons. And this month is important because we've got a lunar eclipse happening today, actually. And then at the end of the month, we've got a solar eclipse. And the influences of those last about 6 months. So those are significant. I do a monthly horoscope. So the horoscopes for March are out. I'm going to film the horoscopes for April next week, ideally. And then I also do a daily tarot reading on this channel. And if you want to watch that, then please become a member of the channel. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best.